What if everything you've been taught about winning is completely backwards? The ancient Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. For centuries, society has measured victory by trophies, titles, and applause. But what if true triumph begins the moment you stop chasing external validation and start commanding your inner world? This isn't about suppressing ambition, it's about redirecting it. Today, we're dismantling the myth that success means conquering the world and replacing it with something far more powerful: the art of conquering yourself. You'll discover Stoic strategies that transform setbacks into fuel, pressure into clarity, and daily struggles into a masterclass in self-ownership, because the ultimate achievement isn't what you earn, it's who you become in the process. Think about how society celebrates victory: raucous cheers, golden trophies, promotions that come with corner offices. But here's the uncomfortable truth Stoicism forces us to confront. If you define winning by things outside your control, you're setting yourself up for endless frustration. Epictetus, the former slave who became one of history's greatest philosophers, put it bluntly: some things are up to us and some are not. To a Stoic, real victory isn't about dominating others or collecting accolades. It's the quiet, unshakable mastery of your own mind. Picture a ship's captain in a raging storm. They can't control the waves, but they can adjust the sails, steady the helm, and choose not to panic. That's the Stoic ideal. Seneca said it best: fortune falls heavily on those for whom she's unexpected. In other words, the person who's trained their inner world doesn't collapse when the outer world gets chaotic. So let me ask you this: when was the last time you felt genuinely victorious, not because someone applauded you, but because you held your ground when everything tempted you to lose it? There's a paradox at the heart of every meaningful pursuit. The more you crave an outcome, the more it can consume you. This is where Stoicism flips the script on ambition, not by dismissing it, but by refining it. Epictetus drew a line straight down the center of human experience. Some things are within our power while others are not. Your effort, your discipline, your integrity. Those belong to you, but the job offer, the market crash, the opinion of a competitor, those lie beyond your command. Think of a tech entrepreneur launching a startup. They can pour everything into their vision, crafting a brilliant product, assembling the right team, working relentless hours. But if their success depends solely on venture capital funding or the whims of consumer trends, they've anchored their self-worth to a ship they can't steer. Marcus Aurelius warned against this. You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you. The Stoic approach isn't passivity, it's precision. Direct your ambition like an archer. Focus on the stance, the aim, the release, the wind that's out of your hands. Now take a moment to examine your own ambitions. How many of them rely on external validation, a promotion, a rival's failure, perfect conditions? The tighter you grip what you can't control, the more it controls you. Stoicism offers a liberating alternative. Pursue fiercely, but let the results refine you rather than define you. Because real power isn't in guaranteeing outcomes, it's in mastering your response to every possible one. One of the most powerful weapons in any ambitious person's arsenal isn't optimism, it's anticipation. The Stoics called it Premeditatio Malorum, the deliberate practice of envisioning obstacles before they arise. This isn't pessimism, it's strategic preparation. Seneca compared it to a general surveying the battlefield. The man who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive. Consider a founder launching a product. Instead of obsessing over hypothetical success, they methodically ask, what if the launch crashes? What if investors pull out? By confronting these scenarios in advance, they strip fear of its surprise and build contingency muscles. Olympic athletes do this instinctively. They don't just visualize gold medals, they rehearse stumbles, equipment failures, even hostile crowds. The goal isn't to dwell on failure, but to inoculate against panic when it matters most. This practice transforms obstacles from threats into training. When Seneca advised his friend Lucilius to rehearse poverty, exile, and death, he wasn't promoting despair, he was forging immunity to life's unpredictability. Because here's the paradox: by regularly staring down the worst-case scenario, you expand your capacity to handle it and often discover hidden paths forward. So here's a challenge: pick one goal you're pursuing right now. Now, list 3 potential roadblocks, not to discourage yourself, but to arm yourself. How might your strategy shift if you treated setbacks as inevitable, not personal failures, but checkpoints in a larger training regimen? That shift in perspective is where Stoic resilience turns ambition into endurance. Here's the next segment of the script following your guidelines. Toxic positivity tells you to plaster on a smile and pretend everything's fine. Stoicism asks something far more radical: fall in love with what happens, even when it hurts. This is Amor Fati, the ancient Stoic practice of embracing fate not with resignation, but with the fierce curiosity of an alchemist turning lead into gold. Friedrich Nietzsche, who later adopted this idea, put it bluntly: "My formula for greatness is Amor Fati, to want nothing to be different, not in the future, not in the past." Imagine a startup founder whose company collapses. The toxic positivity crowd would urge them to just stay positive, as if disappointment were a glitch to ignore. But Stoicism offers a different lens. What if this failure clears space for something unexpected? History's greatest pivots, from Slack's origins as a failed video game to Twitter's birth from a podcasting app's wreckage, weren't accidents. They were the result of founders who didn't just endure setbacks but interrogated them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The obstacle becomes the way," not by magic, but because obstacles force us to develop skills, strategies, and strengths we'd otherwise never uncover. Here's the distinction: toxic positivity avoids pain. Amor Fati interrogates it. It asks, what's here to learn? Where does this free me? What's now possible that wasn't before? A rejection letter might reveal a career path you'd overlooked. A broken partnership could teach you boundaries you'll need for future success. Even grief, when fully faced, carries the quiet gift of clarifying what truly matters. So pause and reflect. What recent setback have you been resisting like an unwelcome guest? What if you invited it in, sat with it, and asked, why might this be necessary? Not as a platitude, but as a genuine challenge, because the competitive edge doesn't go to those who avoid storms, it goes to those who learn to sail in them. There's a hidden cost to ambition that no one talks about: the way unchecked desire can quietly turn from fuel into chains. Seneca saw this centuries ago when he wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more who is poor." The Stoics weren't against ambition, they were against letting it own you. Think of desire like fire: controlled, it warms and propels you; uncontrolled, it consumes everything in its path. Modern culture glorifies the grind, the hustle, the relentless chase for more. But minimalist entrepreneurs, those who build empires with intentionality, understand something ancient. True freedom comes not from accumulating, but from discerning. They ask, does this expand my impact or just my image? While others drown in subscriptions, status symbols, and the dizzying pursuit of visibility. Epictetus, born into slavery, knew this intimately. Freedom isn't secured by filling your coffers, but by emptying your wants. Here's the litmus test: when your ambition flares, is it rooted in virtue or validation? The difference lies in the questions you ask. Will this make me better? vs. Will this make me look better? One builds integrity, the other builds insecurity disguised as success. A tech CEO chasing innovation for its own sake operates differently than one obsessed with stock prices and headlines. The first is driven by purpose, the second by appetite, and appetites, as Seneca warned, grow sharper with feeding. So pause and dissect your own ambitions. What desires are steering you? Are they aligned with who you want to be, or just what you want to have? Because Stoic ambition isn't about denying growth. It's about ensuring your hunger elevates you rather than enslaves you. The most powerful people aren't those with the most, but those who have mastered the art of wanting wisely. Death isn't morbid, it's the most clarifying reminder we have. The Stoics practiced Memento Mori, remember you must die, not to dwell on the end, but to magnify the value of now. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say and think. There's a reason Steve Jobs kept his famous question front and center. If today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do? Procrastination thrives in the illusion of endless time, but urgency awakens when time becomes precious. History's most impactful creators understood this. Mozart composed his final 3 symphonies in 6 weeks, racing against failing health. Marie Curie, battling radiation sickness, pushed through to isolate radium, not for accolades but because her work mattered. These weren't acts of desperation, they were demonstrations of focus sharpened by life's fragility. Contrast that with how most of us operate, distracted by trivialities, postponing what's meaningful for a hypothetical someday. Think of mortality like an hourglass. The sand isn't your enemy, it's your accountability partner. The less you have, the more deliberately you'll use it. That's why Stoics didn't shy from death, they let it cut through hesitation. Seneca urged, hold every hour in your grasp, lay hold of today's task, and you won't depend so much on tomorrow's. So ask yourself, what would I start or stop if I truly believed time was my scarcest resource? Not as a morbid exercise, but as a litmus test for what deserves your limited days. Because the legacy you leave won't be built in the moments you intended to act, but in the ones you actually did. History brims with individuals who didn't just preach Stoic principles, they lived them under crushing pressure. Take Cato the Younger, the Roman senator who chose death over compromising his integrity. When Julius Caesar seized power, Cato didn't flee or beg for mercy. He calmly read Plato's Phaedo on immortality before taking his own life. What's shocking isn't the act itself, but his mental state. No panic, no wavering, just unwavering commitment to his code. Seneca later wrote of him, Cato didn't outlive freedom, freedom outlived Cato. Then there's Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, who transformed personal catastrophe into philosophy. After losing everything in a shipwreck, he wandered into a bookstore in Athens, stumbled upon Socrates' teachings, and rebuilt his life around the idea that loss could be alchemy. He didn't just theorize resilience, his entire school of thought was forged in the fire of his own suffering. These weren't flawless heroes, they were humans who channeled adversity into training grounds. Notice the pattern. Their power came not from titles or conquests, but from how they met challenges. A Stoic role model isn't someone who never falls, it's someone who refuses to let the fall define them. Now consider your own circle who operates this way. Maybe it's a mentor who treats setbacks like puzzles to solve, or a colleague who stays composed under deadlines without sacrificing ethics. The lesson isn't to idolize these figures, but to dissect how they think. As Seneca advised, don't copy their actions, study their virtues. Because what made Cato unshakable wasn't his political rank, but his refusal to let external chaos dictate his inner world. So here's a question to sit with: whose discipline quietly inspires you? Not because their life looks perfect, but because the way they handle imperfection reveals what true self-command looks like in action. Here's your next script segment, crafted to flow seamlessly from the previous content while introducing fresh insight. Ambition without pause is like a bow perpetually drawn. Eventually, the tension snaps the string. The Stoics weren't just masters of endurance, they were architects of strategic retreat. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire, still carved out moments of solitude, writing, "Nowhere can a man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." In a world that equates busyness with worth, Stoicism teaches a radical countermove. Deliberate withdrawal isn't weakness, it's tactical repositioning. Take Bill Gates' famous Think Weeks twice a year. He'd vanish into a secluded cabin with stacks of books and research papers. No meetings, no distractions, just deep reflection. These retreats birthed breakthroughs like Internet Explorer and Microsoft's philanthropic pivot. Gates wasn't escaping work, he was elevating it by creating space for discernment. Contrast that with modern hustle culture's hamster wheel, where exhaustion is worn as a badge and burnout masquerades as commitment. Here's the Stoic distinction: reflection isn't inaction, it's the invisible labor of realignment. Seneca cautioned, life without reflection isn't worth living, because progress isn't just about movement, it's about direction. A general doesn't charge blindly into battle. They assess terrain, study maps, and conserve energy for critical moments. So consider this: when did stepping back last accelerate your progress? Maybe it was a walk that untangled a problem, or a day of silence that revealed a solution hiding in plain sight. The paradox: sometimes the fastest way forward is a moment of stillness, not as an indulgence, but as a strategic recalibration, because clarity doesn't shout over chaos, it waits for the quiet to speak. Here's your next script segment, crafted to align with your outline while maintaining fresh engagement. The Stoics had a radical vision of ambition, one where self-mastery wasn't an end, but a starting point for something far greater. They called it Oikaiosis, the practice of expanding your circle of concern beyond yourself. Hierocles, a Stoic philosopher, illustrated this with concentric circles. At the center, your mind and body, rippling outward, family, community, humanity itself. The goal wasn't to erase the self, but to extend its reach like a stone dropped in water, where every ripple amplifies impact. Consider Patagonia's founder, Yvon Chouinard. He built a billion-dollar empire not by chasing profits alone, but by tethering growth to environmental activism. "Earth is now our only shareholder," he declared, turning commerce into stewardship. That's Oikaiosis in action, ambition harnessed not just for personal gain, but as a lever to lift the world. Marcus Aurelius embodied this daily despite ruling Rome. He saw his power as a responsibility to serve, writing, "What benefits the hive benefits the bee." Here's the pivot modern ambition often misses. True self-command creates capacity to command less for yourself. When Epictetus taught students, he didn't just train them to endure hardship, he prepared them to lead others through it. Because resilience, when hoarded, is just survival. When shared, it becomes strategy. So reflect for a moment. How does your ambition currently touch lives beyond your own? Maybe it's mentoring a colleague, building a business that solves real problems, or simply modeling calm in chaos. The Stoic reminder is this: your growth isn't just yours. Like a torch passed hand to hand, the stronger your flame burns, the more light you have to offer. And in a world hungry for leaders who uplift rather than exploit, that might be the most powerful victory of all. Imagine an archer drawing back his bow, every muscle engaged, eyes locked on the target. He can control his stance, his aim, his release. But once the arrow flies, the wind decides its path. This ancient Stoic analogy, repeated by thinkers from Cicero to Epictetus, holds a startling key to modern ambition. Excellence demands full effort but zero attachment to applause. The archer's power lies not in guaranteeing a bullseye, but in perfecting the shot within his control, then letting go. Modern creators embody this daily. Composer Ludwig Göransson works obsessively on scores for films like Oppenheimer, crafting each note with precision, yet walks into theaters knowing some will call it genius, others noise. Visual artist Yayoi Kusama paints her polka dots for decades before the world decides their masterpieces. As Epictetus put it, in life your duty is to play your assigned role well. The choosing of it belongs to another. Here's where most stumble, mistaking detachment for indifference. The Stoic archer cares deeply about the craft, the discipline, the daily showing up. What he releases isn't effort, but entitlement to a specific reward. A chef can perfect a recipe without demanding every diner praise it. A writer can polish prose without requiring all readers to applaud. So pause and examine, what project or goal has you white-knuckling the outcome? Where are you substituting validation for virtuosity? Because the paradox is this: the tighter you cling to external results, the weaker your grasp becomes on the one thing that truly shapes them, your own relentless, unattached execution. The arrow flies furthest when the archer's hands are both skilled and open. We all get the same 24 hours, yet why do some people seem to extract lifetimes from days while others barely scratch the surface? Seneca cut through this paradox 2,000 years ago with a razor-sharp observation. Life is long if you know how to use it. His essay on the shortness of life isn't about time management tricks, it's about attention triage. The Stoics didn't see hours as empty containers to fill, but as precious currency to invest with surgical precision. Warren Buffett's 25-5 rule embodies this perfectly. He tells his pilots to list 25 career goals, then circle only the top 5, the rest become avoid at all costs distractions. Why? Because as Seneca warned, when you scatter your focus, you don't just lose time, you lose yourself. Modern research confirms this. Multitasking shrinks the brain's gray matter. The Stoic alternative: treat priorities like an ER surgeon triaging patients. Not everything bleeding deserves your scalpel. Consider how differently two people might spend a Saturday morning. One refreshes social media feeds, jumps between chores, and leaves feeling drained. The other dedicates 90 uninterrupted minutes to mastering a skill or deepening a relationship, emerging energized. Both stayed busy, but only one practiced Chrissy's judgment, the Stoic art of discernment. So here's the challenge lurking in Seneca's words. What harmless-looking habits are secretly hijacking your most limited resource? That extra 20 minutes scrolling news feeds. The meetings that could have been emails, even productive tasks like over-editing a presentation when good enough would suffice. Time theft rarely comes with a mask, it wears the face of routine. The remedy isn't more hours, it's the courage to ruthlessly protect the ones you have. Because as any Stoic will tell you, no one finds time for what matters, they forge it by saying no to what doesn't. There's a silent transformation that happens when skill meets humility. The moment a virtuoso musician still practices scales daily, or a Nobel laureate insists they've only scratched the surface of their field. This is the paradox of true mastery. The more you know, the less you need to prove you know it. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man on earth, would write himself reminders like, "Throw out your conceited opinions, for it's impossible to learn what you think you already know." That's ego death in action, not self-erasure, but the quiet confidence that no longer craves external validation to feel worthy. Think of a concert pianist. The amateur performs to hear applause, the maestro plays to honor the music itself. The difference isn't talent, it's where they place their identity. Stoicism trains this like a muscle. Separate your work from your worth. When Aurelius journaled, it's ridiculous not to escape your own vices, which is possible, while trying to escape others, which is impossible. He was pinpointing ego's trap, mistaking others' opinions for your compass. Now consider your own ambitions. Where does the whisper, "Do they see how good I am?" subtly steer your choices? Maybe it's over-explaining in meetings, resisting feedback, or avoiding challenges where you might not shine immediately. Ego clings to pedestals. Growth thrives in the dirt of practice. As the Stoic proverb goes, the oak stands taller not by denying its roots but by embracing them. That's the freedom awaiting on the other side of ego, not diminished ambition but purified ambition, the kind that asks, "What can I build?" instead of "Who will notice?" Because mastery isn't a spotlight, it's the discipline to keep honing your craft even when the audience has gone home. History's greatest breakthroughs often arrive disguised as dead ends. That's the core premise of Ryan Holiday's The Obstacle is the Way, a manifesto for transforming setbacks into stepping stones. At its heart, a truth Marcus Aurelius scribbled in his journals 2 millennia ago. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This isn't poetic reassurance, it's a battle-tested strategy. Take Abraham Lincoln's trajectory, losing 8 elections, battling depression, and presiding over a fractured nation. Yet each defeat sharpened his ability to unite opposing forces. When his son Willie died during the Civil War, Lincoln didn't collapse. He channeled grief into emancipating millions. Holiday's insight: Lincoln didn't just endure suffering, he weaponized it. The same pattern emerges in figures from Edison to Mandela. What broke others became their raw material for rebuilding. Here's the twist most miss: obstacles don't just test resolve, they reveal hidden paths. A flooded basement forces you to finally reorganize. A failed product launch exposes a niche you'd overlook. Even pain, physical or emotional, carries data about what truly matters to you. As Holiday puts it, the obstacle is not the enemy, it's the guide. So pause and reframe. What's one current challenge you've been resisting? Maybe it's a stalled project, a strained relationship, or a resource shortage. Now ask, how could this limitation actually clarify my priorities or spark innovation? Not as a hypothetical, but as a deliberate excavation, because the difference between a roadblock and a runway lies in where you choose to direct your focus. This isn't about toxic positivity, it's about tactical perspective. The Stoics didn't pretend obstacles felt good, they trained to use them. Like blacksmiths hammering raw iron into swords, they understood. Friction isn't the enemy of progress, it's the forge. What if your current scoreboard for success is rigged? The Stoics measured progress with entirely different metrics, ones that couldn't be hacked, bought, or faked. While modern culture obsesses over followers, net worth, and titles, Epictetus issued a stark reminder. Work to be like the headland against which waves continually break. It stands firm while the churning sea around it comes to rest. True success wasn't in the noise of external validation, but in the silent strength of internal benchmarks. Integrity over image, growth over gratification, equanimity over applause. Take 2 musicians, one chases viral fame, the other dedicates years to mastering scales. The first might bask in fleeting likes, but the second builds something no algorithm can erase: craftsmanship. Or consider entrepreneurs. One obsesses over press coverage while the other focuses on customer impact. The difference: vanity metrics fluctuate, virtue compounds. Marcus Aurelius tracked his progress not by conquests but by questions. Was I more just today, more resilient, more aligned with my principles? Here's the litmus test Stoicism offers. Does this metric depend on someone else's opinion or my own effort? Social media likes vanish with platform changes, but the discipline you cultivate stays yours. Promotions can be political, but the skills you hone aren't. Even financial wealth hinges on markets, yet your ability to adapt, create, and endure, that's sovereign territory. So pause and recalibrate. What are you currently measuring, and who really owns the ruler? Imagine a world where your dashboard showed only self-command, resilience, and ethical rigor. How would your daily choices shift? Because the ultimate power isn't in achieving society's benchmarks, it's in redefining them. Not to lower standards, but to elevate what truly lasts. The most profound gratitude often comes from staring loss directly in the face before it ever happens. This is the unsettling brilliance of Premeditatio Malorum, the Stoic practice of negative visualization. Seneca didn't just suggest counting your blessings, he urged you to simulate their absence. In one letter to Lucilius, he wrote, "He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand." It sounds counterintuitive, yet this mental rehearsal transforms how we engage with what we have. Consider the disciplined athlete who trains not just for victory, but with the visceral awareness that injury could erase their abilities overnight. Every sprint, every rep carries new weight when viewed through the lens of "this might not always be possible." Or the founder who builds their company not just for growth, but with the sobering question, if this collapsed tomorrow, would I still find meaning in the work itself? Negative visualization isn't about fear, it's about focus. By mentally removing comfort, status, even relationships, we distill what truly matters. Take Seneca's challenge to rehearse poverty, not to manifest lack, but to expose hidden dependencies. Imagine waking to find your bank account empty, your titles stripped away. The initial panic fades, and beneath it, a quiet revelation. What skills, relationships, or values remain untouchable? That's the Stoic's compass. So here's the pivot. What endeavor or relationship would gut you to lose, not because of its external rewards, but because of how it shapes who you are? Maybe it's the project that ignites your curiosity, even if no one applauds it, or the morning routine that grounds you regardless of outcomes. Negative visualization peels back the veneer of habit to reveal your authentic priorities. Because here's the paradox: picturing loss doesn't diminish what you have. It intensifies your commitment to honoring it. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not act as if you had 10,000 years to live." The awareness of impermanence isn't morbid, it's the whetstone that sharpens your present action. When you work, love, or create with the quiet certainty that it could all vanish, you stop postponing what matters. And that is how you wrestle the fleeting present into something enduring. History's most powerful emperor kept a journal, not for planning battles or recording victories, but to wage war against his own blind spots. Marcus Aurelius' Meditations was never meant for publication. Those private pages where he wrestled with doubts, reinforced virtues, and questioned his own motives became the ultimate playbook for self-mastery. What made it transformative wasn't just what he wrote, but how, with the brutal honesty of a surgeon dissecting their own flaws. Stoic journaling isn't about chronicling events, it's dissecting reactions. Imagine your mind as a courtroom and your pen as the prosecutor, defense, and judge. Aurelius modeled this daily. Why feel anger at the world? It feels no anger toward you. He didn't just vent frustration, he cross-examined it. Modern adaptations like bullet journaling meet this legacy when they pair tasks with probing questions. Did I act from fear or courage today? Or what comfort did I mistake for necessity? Here's the pivot most miss. Clarity doesn't come from writing more, but from digging deeper. Try this Stoic prompt tonight. What's one assumption I treated as fact today, and how might it be wrong? Like shining light into attic corners, you'll uncover mental cobwebs you've ignored for years. Naval Ravikant practices a ruthless version. If I couldn't attach my name to this decision, would I still make it? That's the acid test for integrity. The magic lies in structure. Borrow Aurelius' template. 1. Observation: what happened? Right arrow: the client rejected my proposal. 2. Interrogation: why does this bother me? Right arrow: it challenges my expertise. 3. Realignment: how might wisdom respond? Right arrow: feedback refines the work, it doesn't define me. Your journal isn't a confessional, it's a forge. Every sentence hammers raw experience into sharper self-awareness. So ask yourself, what question have you been avoiding that could unravel an entire pattern? Because as Seneca wrote to Lucilius, no man can be free who is a slave to his own unexamined mind. The most revealing pages aren't filled with answers, they're framed by the questions you've been too hesitant to ask. Nature's greatest strength often hides in what appears to be stillness. An oak tree doesn't sprint toward maturity, it deepens its roots invisibly for years before outstripping shorter-lived plants. Seneca captured this truth when he wrote, "Time discovers truth. No one becomes great overnight. Patience in Stoic philosophy isn't passive waiting, it's active preparation." Every delay is a chance to refine, recalibrate, and reinforce foundations that ephemeral hustle can't replicate. Take SpaceX's early years. Between 2008 and 2010, their first 3 Falcon 1 rockets exploded. Instead of retreating, Elon Musk's team reverse-engineered each failure, iterating with glacial precision. By 2015, they achieved the first ever orbital rocket landing, a milestone born not from haste, but from treating setbacks as tuition in a masterclass only time could teach. Contrast that with modern impatience, abandoned gym memberships after weeks, shelved startups before year 1, or relationships discarded at the first conflict. Here's the Stoic distinction. Patience isn't the absence of speed, it's the presence of discernment. Like a blacksmith cooling steel between hammer strikes, strategic pauses prevent brittleness. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, no random actions, none not based on underlying principles. Translation, velocity without direction is just noise. So reflect on your own journey. Where are you forcing timelines instead of fortifying foundations? Maybe it's expecting fluency in a language after months, or frustration when a promotion doesn't arrive on your schedule. Now reconsider, what if this delay is the universe's way of ensuring you're truly ready for what you're chasing? Because the surest oak doesn't fear slow growth, it trusts that depth precedes height. Seneca's words echo across centuries. Great things take time to grow, not as consolation but as strategy. The question isn't whether you'll wait, it's how you'll use the wait. Will you resent the clock or let it sculpt you into someone capable of sustaining the success you seek? Your inner circle doesn't just reflect who you are, it shapes who you're becoming. Epictetus put it bluntly, you become like those whose company you keep, so choose whom you endure. This isn't about elitism, it's about ecology. Just as a plant thrives in nutrient-rich soil or withers in toxicity, your mindset adapts to the voices you permit into your orbit. The Stoics didn't advocate isolation, they practiced selective association, surrounding themselves with those who mirrored the virtues they sought to cultivate. Consider 2 professional scenarios. 1. The mastermind effect. Benjamin Franklin's Junto Club brought together thinkers committed to mutual growth, debating ideas, challenging biases, and holding each other accountable. These weren't casual networking events, they were virtuous feedback loops. 2. The energy drain. Ever left a conversation with a chronic complainer feeling mentally exhausted? Musonius Rufus warned, we degrade ourselves when we tolerate those who pull us toward pettiness. Toxic colleagues don't just waste your time, they erode your resilience. Here's the litmus test Stoicism offers. After interacting with someone, do you feel more focused or fragmented? Not every relationship needs to be transactional, but every influential one should pass the elevation test. Does this person's presence sharpen your discipline or subtly excuse your compromises? Think of your social circle as a gym for your character. You wouldn't use broken equipment that risks injury. Why tolerate relationships that weaken your self-command? As Seneca wrote to Lucilius, associate with those who will make you better, welcome those you can improve. the reciprocity is key. You're not just seeking mentor, you're preparing to become one. So pause and audit. Who in your life consistently nudges you toward your higher self? Maybe it's the friend who asks probing questions instead of nodding along, or the colleague who critiques your work with rigor, not cynicism. These are the alliances that don't just fill your calendar but fortify your character, because in the end, your network isn't measured by its size, but by its capacity to turn your aspirations into ironclad habits. Every evening, quietly grading yourself isn't self-judgment, it's the blueprint for your future self. The Stoics practiced what could be called history's first performance review, not for a promotion, but for character. Marcus Aurelius ended his days with a simple ritual, jotting in his journal, "What did I do today for my principles? Where did I falter?" This wasn't self-criticism, it was calibration. The military takes this even further. Navy SEAL conduct after action reviews brutally honest debriefs where even successful missions are dissected for marginal improvements. The lesson, growth isn't found in trophies, but in the uncomfortable questions you ask when the crowd isn't watching. As Epictetus put it, progress isn't measured by how much you've read, but by how much you've realigned. Here's how to adapt this. 1. The Stoic filter. Ask, did my actions today expand my virtue or just my vanity? E.g., did I speak up to serve the team or to sound smart? 2. The SEAL standard. Where did I tolerate mediocrity in myself? E.g., skipping that final edit, snapping at a colleague under stress. 3. The Aurelius angle. What's one small pivot that would have made today more aligned? E.g., pausing before reacting, protecting deep work hours. This isn't about guilt, it's about leverage. A chef doesn't improve by pretending tonight's dish was flawless, but by tasting it ruthlessly. So here's your challenge. What single question asked nightly would expose the gap between who you are and who you're capable of becoming? Not a laundry list, just one laser-focused inquiry that cuts through excuses. Because as Seneca reminded Lucilius, the unexamined day is the thief of progress, and stolen days stacked over years become a life of unfulfilled potential. Your evening review isn't a chore, it's the quiet power move of those who refuse to let a single sunset pass without advancing their mastery. The path to strength isn't paved with ease, it's forged in the deliberate embrace of discomfort. This was Epictetus' radical proposition when he told his students, "Test yourself with hardship voluntarily so you won't be forced to." The Stoics didn't wait for life to break them, they trained to be unbreakable. Like a blacksmith tempering steel, they sought out friction to fortify their resilience long before fate delivered its blows. Modern science now confirms this ancient wisdom. When elite athletes expose themselves to ice baths or high-altitude training, they're not punishing themselves, they're preparing. The body adapts to stress by growing stronger. The same principle applies to the mind. Silicon Valley CEOs wake at dawn for freezing showers not as masochism, but as mastery, proving to themselves daily that comfort is a choice, not a necessity. But here's where most misunderstand. Voluntary discomfort isn't about suffering for its own sake. It's about exposing dependencies. Skip a meal intentionally, and you'll discover hunger won't kill you, but your fear of it might control you. Walk without headphones for a week, and you'll confront the itch for constant distraction. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the obstacle to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Each small denial sharpens your capacity to choose purpose over impulse. Consider the entrepreneur who trades business-class flights for budget travel. The discomfort of cramped seats isn't the goal. It's the reminder that luxury is optional while resourcefulness is essential. Or the writer who drafts chapters longhand, resisting the dopamine hits of constant notifications. These aren't sacrifices, they're strength training for the will. So pause and probe. What comfort have you allowed to become a crutch? Maybe it's the snooze button that steals your mornings or the endless scroll that numbs your evenings. Identify one convenience that softly erodes your discipline, then challenge it, not to deprive yourself but to reclaim sovereignty, because as Epictetus knew, difficulty shows what men are. Not in crisis, but in the quiet moments when no one's watching and the easy path beckons. True freedom isn't found in avoiding hardship. It's built by proving, again and again, that you can thrive without the comforts you once thought you needed. And that's a victory no one can take from you. Some decisions ripple through years, others echo across lifetimes. The Stoics practiced prosoch, the art of hyper-attentive decision-making, not as occasional deliberation, but as a disciplined way of being. Seneca captured this perfectly: deliberate twice before deciding once. In our era of rapid-fire choices, from inbox replies to career pivots, Stoic attention becomes a superpower. Picture Eisenhower's urgent/important matrix filtered through Stoic values. Every choice gets weighed not just by timelines, but by virtue alignment. Take a CEO evaluating a merger. Urgency screams, "Close the deal now." Importance whispers, "Will this expand our integrity or erode it?" The Stoic pause, that moment of prosoch, creates space to ask, does this path cultivate courage, justice, wisdom, or just convenience? Modern tools like decision journals echo this. Investor Ray Dalio logs every major choice alongside his reasoning, then reviews outcomes to spot biases, a practice Marcus Aurelius would have applauded. Here's where most go astray, mistaking speed for decisiveness. Stoicism reframes haste as unexamined surrender. When Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon, he didn't act impulsively. He'd calculated the costs of civil war versus unchecked tyranny. The lesson, speed matters less than clarity of principle. Now turn the lens inward. What recent choice would shift if you'd applied this level of attention? Maybe it's the snappy email you regret, or the opportunity you accepted without weighing hidden costs. The gap between reflex and response is where prosoch thrives. Because as Seneca reminds us, life isn't short, we make it so by thoughtless expenditure of time. Every decision is a brick in the architecture of your character. Lay each one with intention and the structure holds. Great artists share a secret they create with the door closed, then edit with it open. This philosophy, championed by writers like Stephen King, mirrors the Stoic view of praise and criticism as externals, things to acknowledge but never anchor to. Marcus Aurelius built what he called his inner citadel, a mental fortress where outside opinions couldn't breach his self-worth. He wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." Consider how legendary filmmaker Hayao Miyazaki operates. While Studio Ghibli's films win global acclaim, he's famously dismissive of both awards and critiques, telling his team, "If the story's truth resonates with you, nothing else matters." Contrast that with the modern obsession with metrics, likes, ratings, performance reviews, where self-assurance rises and falls with each notification. The Stoic distinction, external feedback becomes data, not destiny. Here's the litmus test whose judgment most frequently hijacks your focus: a parent's approval. A rival's skepticism, the faceless crowd on social media. Epictetus offered a razor-sharp tool. If someone handed your body to a passerby, you'd be outraged. Why hand your mind to strangers? Every time you grant someone's opinion power over your peace, you've surrendered sovereignty. This isn't about ignoring feedback, it's about filtering it. A chef tastes their own dish before checking reviews. A programmer's stress tests their code before reading bug reports. The sequence matters: self-assessment first, external input second. As Seneca advised, what's right isn't determined by applause but by conscience. So pause and recalibrate. When was the last time you created something purely for the joy of the work itself? Not for applause, not to avoid criticism, but because it aligned with your inner standard. That's the citadel's foundation, the unshakable knowing that your worth was never on the table for others to judge. The artist's freedom lies not in being universally praised, but in being fundamentally unmoved. Like a lighthouse indifferent to the waves, your light shines brighter when you stop measuring it against every passing ripple. Your mental energy is the currency of achievement. Spend it like a stoic investor, not a reckless gambler. Seneca warned his students, no person hands out their money to passers-by, yet how many of us hand out our lives? The Stoics understood something modern science now confirms. Willpower is finite. Every argument entertained, every distraction tolerated, every trivial decision made drains reserves you'll need when real challenges arise. Consider two approaches to a workday. 1. The scattergun, checking emails while brainstorming, chiming into office politics, and juggling 4 half-finished tasks, leaving exhaustion without accomplishment. 2. The Stoic saboteur, guarding mornings for deep work like a fortress, silencing notifications, and letting minor grievances pass without engagement. Microsoft's research found it takes 23 minutes to refocus after an interruption. Multiply that across a day, and you've squandered hours, Seneca's antidote. Be deaf to petty disputes. Your ears shouldn't accommodate insults any more than a warrior's shield would bend for a feather. The pivot point lies in discernment. Not all battles are equal. A Stoic asks, does this deserve a piece of my limited attention, or is it merely noise? Warren Buffett's two-list strategy applies here. Write down 25 priorities, then circle only the top 5. The rest, avoid them like cognitive landmines. Now audit your own patterns. What habitual distractions masquerade as necessities? Maybe it's the reflex to win online debates, the itch to check metrics hourly, or colleagues who treat your focus as communal property. Each yes to triviality is a no to transcendence, because here's the unspoken truth: your greatest work won't emerge from a fractured mind. Like a sculptor preserving marble for the masterpiece, reserve your sharpest focus for what aligns with your highest aim, and let everything else crumble into irrelevance. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? The answer will shock you into ruthless prioritization. Behind every so-called overnight success lies years of invisible labor, a truth Beethoven knew all too well. By the time his Fifth Symphony shocked the world, the composer had already endured 3 decades of grueling practice, hearing loss and personal tragedies. Yet history only remembers the triumph, not the thousands of hours spent refining his craft in silence. This mirrors Seneca's timeless observation: life is long if you know how to use it. Stoicism reframes endurance not as suffering, but as the silent compounding of mastery, where time becomes your ally, not your enemy. Modern culture obsesses over viral moments and rapid growth hacks, but the Stoics measured progress differently. Consider the Japanese concept of kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold. The cracks aren't hidden, they're highlighted as part of the object's history. Similarly, Marcus Aurelius journaled about embracing setbacks as the rough stone that polishes the sword. Every rejection, every delayed milestone, every unseen effort isn't a detour. It's the necessary friction that transforms ambition into enduring excellence. Take Olympic gymnasts. Their routines last mere minutes, but their training spans lifetimes. They don't measure progress in weeks, they track micro-improvements over decades. This is Stoic endurance in action, focusing on the daily reps, not the distant podium. As Epictetus advised, progress is not achieved by luck or accident, but by working on yourself daily. Now turn the lens on your own journey. Where are you prioritizing speed over substance? Maybe it's skimming books instead of annotating them, chasing quick certifications over deep understanding, or abandoning projects when results don't materialize immediately. The critical question isn't how fast can I succeed, but what quality of work am I willing to commit to even if no one applauds it yet? Because here's the paradox: the most lasting victories aren't seized, they're cultivated. Like a redwood tree growing unseen for centuries before touching the sky, your legacy will be built not in the spotlight's glare, but in the quiet consistency of showing up day after day with your standards intact. The world may celebrate the breakthrough, but the Stoic knows the real work happened long before the crowd arrived. True confidence whispers, arrogance needs to scream. The Stoics drew a razor-sharp line between these two, one rooted in unshakable self-trust, the other in fragile self-importance. Take Cato the Younger, whose integrity became legendary. After a major political victory, he didn't parade through Rome demanding applause. Instead, he returned to his studies, treating success as neither accident nor entitlement, but as the natural result of aligned action. As Epictetus put it, what's yours is the ability to work with your impressions. Claim that, and you'll never need to claim another's praise. Modern culture often conflates confidence with brashness. Think of the entrepreneur who mistakes swagger for competence, or the influencer equating visibility with value. But Stoic self-assurance operates differently. It's the quiet steadiness of a surgeon's hands, not the dramatic flourishes of a stage performer. Marcus Aurelius modeled this daily, ruling an empire while journaling reminders like, "Don't go around discussing what a good person you are. Just be one." Here's the litmus test: does your confidence expand your capacity to serve, or just your need to be seen? Humble confidence seeks truth over trophies. It's the scientist peer reviewing their own work before submission, the leader who credits their team before taking the podium. Arrogance, on the other hand, is a hall of mirrors. It reflects only itself. Consider how you prepare for challenges. Do you rehearse to refine your skills, or to rehearse applause? The difference lies in your focus, mastery, or theatrics. As Seneca observed, the louder a man speaks of his virtue, the more we should question his motives. So pause and reflect. When you last felt truly confident, was it because you'd honored your principles, or because others noticed you honoring them? That distinction doesn't just shape your character, it determines whether your confidence is armor or a costume. Watch a champion athlete mid-performance. Their body moves with explosive power, yet their mind remains perfectly still. This paradox lies at the heart of Stoic focus, action that flows from deep stillness. Marcus Aurelius described it as the soul's ability to circle around itself like a calm sea in a confined harbor. The greatest warriors, artists, and leaders share this trait, not the absence of pressure, but the presence of unshakable inner space amidst the storm. Think of a basketball player at the free throw line with seconds left in the game. The crowd screams, the stakes couldn't be higher, yet their breathing stays steady, their focus narrows to the rim. They're not suppressing the chaos, they've trained to operate within it. Modern psychology calls this flow state. The Stoics called it eustatheia, standing firm within yourself regardless of external turbulence. The practical magic lies in preparation. Tennis champion Novak Djokovic practices meditation between points during matches, a reset that keeps his mind clearer than his opponents. It's not about eliminating distraction, but developing what Aurelius termed the inner citadel, a mental fortress where focus becomes untouchable. Now turn the lens inward. What's your version of the free throw line? Maybe it's a high-stakes meeting where emotions run hot, or a creative project plagued by endless revisions. The key isn't waiting for calm conditions, it's building calm into the conditions. Start small. Before replying to a stressful email, take 3 breaths. When multitasking beckons, single task for just 10 minutes. These micro moments of deliberate stillness compound into unshakable presence. Because here's the truth no one tells you: Chaos doesn't break focus, it reveals where your focus wasn't rooted deeply enough. The Stoic doesn't seek an empty room to think clearly. They carry that empty room within them, accessible anytime, anywhere. As the philosopher Emperor wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That strength isn't found in perfect circumstances, but in the quiet space between stimulus and response where your real power lies. Great civilizations built aqueducts not for themselves, but for generations they'd never meet. That's the essence of Stoic legacy ambition redefined as stewardship. Marcus Aurelius never intended his meditations for publication. He was writing to fortify his own character. Yet 2 millennia later, those private reflections outlasted the empire they served, shaping minds from Frederick the Great to modern CEOs. Seneca captured this perfectly. Life is like a play. It's not the length but the quality of acting that matters. Your legacy isn't measured in years, but in the enduring shade your actions cast for others. Consider the Japanese practice of Miyawaki planting dense, native forests that take decades to mature. The gardeners know they'll never sit under those canopies, but their grandchildren will. That's Stoic ambition in action, laboring for outcomes you may never witness. Think of Marie Curie's notebooks, still radioactive a century later, preserved as both warning and inspiration. Or Jonas Salk refusing to patent the polio vaccine, ensuring global access over personal profit. These weren't acts of martyrdom, but of multiplied purpose, recognizing that true impact transcends individual lifespan. Here's the litmus test Seneca would urge you to apply. If my work disappeared tomorrow, who besides me would feel its absence? Not in terms of fame, but in function. Does your creativity solve, teach, or uplift in ways that ripple beyond your immediate circle? Like a stone dropped in water, the most meaningful efforts create waves that outpace the thrower. So pause and reflect. What's one project you could approach not just as a task, but as a timestamp? Maybe it's mentoring with the patience of a bonsai artist, crafting code that will outlive tech trends, or simply modeling integrity so consistently that it becomes a blueprint for others. Because the Stoic secret isn't building monuments, it's planting orchards in minds and hearts, knowing harvests come long after the planting. The most sustainable progress often looks deceptively slow at first glance. That's the heart of Festina Lent, an ancient Stoic paradox meaning make haste slowly. Picture a master blacksmith forging a blade. Each strike is deliberate, each pause intentional. Rushing the process would only weaken the steel. Marcus Aurelius modeled this in his Rule of Rome, balancing urgent demands with disciplined restraint. Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life, now take what's left and live it properly. Modern ambition often glorifies the unsustainable, crushing 80-hour workweeks, rapid scaling at all costs. Yet Japan's Kaizen philosophy, continuous improvement through small, daily steps, reveals the genius of measured momentum. Toyota didn't dominate global manufacturing overnight. They refined one process at a time, knowing compounding micro wins outweigh sporadic leaps. The lesson: burnout isn't a badge of honor. It's a warning that you've mistaken motion for momentum. Consider 2 approaches to fitness. 1. The sprint cycle, obsessive 6-hour gym sessions that lead to injury within weeks. 2. The Stoic rhythm, consistent 20-minute workouts, incrementally increased, yielding lifelong health. Epictetus framed it bluntly: no great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a fig. If you tell me you desire a fig, I answer that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. So here's your challenge: trace one current goal back to its roots. Are you exhausting yourself trying to force fruit from a sapling? The marathoner who paces their breathing outlasts the sprinter who gasps in the first mile. Progress isn't linear, it's rhythmic. Sometimes the most strategic move is not to push harder, but to recover smarter. Because mastery doesn't come from the occasional burst of brilliance. It's forged in the quiet persistence of showing up day after day with your energy intact and your focus undiluted. The tortoise didn't beat the hare by accident. He won by understanding the true currency of victory, endurance over ego. True freedom isn't found in escaping constraint. It's forged in the space between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. Epictetus, who lived much of his life in chains, wrote, "No one is free who is not master of themselves." His words cut through the illusion that victory requires perfect circumstances. Consider prisoners of war like Admiral James Stockdale, who survived 7 years in Vietnam's H-1ECF, a low prison, by practicing Stoicism daily. Beaten and isolated, he realized his captors could control his body but never his mind. That is the ultimate victory, not the absence of struggle, but the unshakable sovereignty to meet it with purpose. History's most resilient figures share this trait. Viktor Frankl, enduring Auschwitz, discovered that even in hell, the last of human freedoms is to choose one's attitude. Nelson Mandela turned 27 years of imprisonment into a masterclass in patience and strategy. These weren't superhumans, they were people who honed the same muscle we all possess, the ability to govern their inner world regardless of outer chaos. Here's the Stoic shift in perspective. Mastery isn't about controlling life's storms, it's about becoming the calm within them. Imagine two sailors in a tempest. One rails against the wind, the other adjusts the sails. Both face the same storm, but only one is truly at sea. When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind," not outside events, he wasn't offering platitudes. He was revealing the architecture of invincibility, the understanding that no external force can defeat you unless you surrender your inner command. Now turn the lens inward. What does undefeatable inner victory look like for you? Maybe it's maintaining integrity when others cut corners, or finding gratitude during setbacks that would derail most. It could be as simple as pausing to breathe before reacting to provocation, proof that your peace isn't held hostage by circumstance. The battlefield isn't the boardroom or the playing field, it's the 6 inches between your ears. And every time you choose discipline over impulse, principle over convenience, you're not just winning a skirmish, you're drafting the blueprint for a life no opponent can dismantle. Because the ultimate victory isn't a trophy or a title. It's the quiet certainty that no matter what the world takes, it can never take your ability to rise again and again from within. These ancient strategies aren't just theories, they're battle-tested tools for reclaiming the only victory that can never be taken from you. Over centuries, from slave-turned philosopher Epictetus to Emperor Marcus Aurelius, one truth stands unshaken. Real power isn't about controlling the world around you, but mastering the world within you. Detachment from outcomes, resilience through adversity, purpose bigger than praise, these aren't just ideals. They're your armor in a culture that equates chaos with productivity and busyness with worth. Detachment is your freedom, not from ambition, but from the tyranny of needing applause to validate your effort. Like an archer focused solely on the release of the arrow, you've learned to measure success by the purity of your effort, not the fickleness of results. Resilience is your forge, the understanding that obstacles aren't roadblocks but the very terrain where strength is built. And purpose, that's your compass, ensuring every step aligns with who you're becoming, not just what you're achieving. Marcus Aurelius left us this final hammer strike of wisdom. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. That's the unbeatable victory, the kind no market crash, no rejection letter, no rival can undo. It's the quiet triumph of a spirit that bends but never breaks because it's rooted in something deeper than circumstance. Now, over to you. What's one small way you've already redefined victory in your own life? Maybe it's choosing patience over panic in a crisis, or finding gratitude on a day that tested your limits. Drop it in the comments, because the most powerful lessons often come from the collective wisdom of this community. And if you're ready to go deeper, hit subscribe. This isn't the end, it's just the first step in a lifelong journey toward unshakable self-command. The world will keep throwing storms your way, but now you'll sail through them, not because the winds changed, but because you did.